Welcome back, Cowboys Nation. Hopefully today we won't have any uploading issues. Sorry for the confusion. If you listened to last episode and you were confused as to why it just abruptly cut off, we're having some recording issues here. So fingers crossed that this one, I guess, goes according to plan. So, but with that being said, today is Thursday, December 21st. This will be our last episode before Christmas, so Merry Christmas to those of you out there who celebrate, and Happy Holidays from the Dallas Ballers Club. And today we are hopefully talking, David and myself, we will hopefully be talking about what should hopefully be a Cowboys victory down in Miami this weekend, and we're going to be doing our typical game preview. And well, I guess just to kind of start it off here before we jump into injuries, is just that it can't really get much worse than last week, you would think. But we have a lot of injuries to discuss here. So I'll just start us off briefly here just to update the people. So on the Cowboys side, big injuries to note. Jonathan Hankins, DNP, that was expected. Zach Martin got hurt this past weekend against Buffalo. He didn't practice today. His status is up in the air. New big injury today is Tyron Smith. He didn't practice, which is normal. However, as of right now, his status for Sunday is up in the air. We don't know if he's going to play, so that's something to monitor. Rico Dowdle was back today. He was limited. Malik Hooker did not practice again, which sucks. And that's pretty much it. The other three names on here were all full participants for our side. But going over to the side of Miami here, there's a lot to unpack here. Without giving all specific names, I could just tell you their entire starting offensive line is on the injury report right now. All five of their offensive linemen either didn't practice or were limited today in practice, which is huge. Also not practicing today was running backs Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane, as well as Tyreek Hill and star cornerback, former Baylor Bear legend Xavier Howard also did not practice today, and their star safety Javon Holland was limited today, as well as Andrew Van Ginkel, Emmanuel Ogba, Cam Smith, Durham Smythe, and Deshaun Elliott, among others. So they've got a lot of injuries, and it's kind of tough to do a preview episode without knowing who's actually going to be on the field. But we're going to try to do our best today. So Spanky, I'll just let you kind of get started here in that, kind of the point that I made earlier, that it really can't get much worse than last week, right?
Hopefully, man. We saw. Well, I mean, to answer your question, it could. Unfortunately, this is a Miami team that scored 70 points in one game. So there's always potential to be worse. Now, will it be worse? I don't think so. I've kind of really dissected film this week, watched some breakdowns, and listened to other podcasters. Really, our run defense, it was a missed tackle issue, and believe it or not, it really wasn't it wasn't our overall play. Believe it or not, it was our alignment, and we were aligning incorrectly. And I've been seeing that everywhere. And for those people that are calling the Depoy favorite and asking him to play more off-ball linebacker, people out there that are saying, and honestly, I want to say it's the majority of people on Twitter right now are saying, put Mike at off-ball linebacker when people are running the ball more on us. And for those people, I'm going to settle this debate and clearly mark which side I am on. If Michael lines up as linebacker, these are NFL teams, not Madden teams. They will quickly audible to a passing play because our best pass rusher is no longer rushing the passer. So just for the sake of putting that out there, dumb idea. But I guess we'll get started with really the offense and what needs to be just from A to Z a bounce back week, whether it's Dak, McCarthy, or banged up offensive line, which honestly I'm leaning more towards we're going to see an offensive line of Edoga, Tyler Smith, Biotish, TJ Bass, and Terrence Steele. I'm not saying I'm punting the season by any means, but if we have injuries, we've clinched playoffs, and us getting the 2 seed, and especially the Eagles of a cakewalk remainder of a schedule, I'm not inclined to rush people back from injuries right now, especially our star-studded future first ballot Hall of Fame offensive linemen. And so I understand that we're going to go against Bradley Chubb, and Van Ginkel's a hell of a player. I'm not even going to, every time he's probably on Red Zone, has a Red Zone highlight probably twice a week.
Yeah.
And so he's going to be very annoying, and they have a very athletic defense. And so where I really just see the Cowboys having success is, looking at the cornerback room, we said Seattle has a very, very good cornerback room, but this is Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard right now. So it's going to be a great matchup. I can't really wait to see kind of how CeeDee Lamb wins and just runs his routes on either Ramsey or Howard, or maybe we line up in the slot more. But honestly, I think this is going to be a game plan, especially with the Cowboys, knowing that damn Mike McDaniels, whatever his name is, with damn clipboard and the play sheet, is going to draw up extravagant plays. I think our game plan going in is going to be try to dominate the clock. I expect it to be a pretty large workload for Tony Pollard today, especially with 2 probably backup linemen. Just kind of build momentum. Let's not put them on islands, and let's not get in pass downs where Bradley Chubb's going to line up over Edoga. Please, Lord, please. Let's not get a 3rd and 13. But I really expect a bounce back week. Mike McCarthy, Dak Prescott, we don't run. They're not running from what was a piss poor performance last week. If you watched our pod, I'm not sure if it even got uploaded. I'm kind of just the talker on the podcast and the Twitter fingers on the podcast. I'm not much behind the scenes, but they don't run from kind of what was an underperforming performance. And it's great to at least just hear them understand that, not even understand, they're not just lying to the media. They're not lying to the fans, that it needs to get better. Shit needs to get fixed. And that's great to hear. And the issue with the Cowboys has always just been consistency. And this is a game where we need to find our footing, or ground is going to get slipped. And I'm not just talking about the playoff picture, ground getting slipped, just overall our confidence in where we are heading into the playoffs will slip if things don't get adjusted. And so I really expect a great run performance. But shout out Kim. But just really need a bounce back performance. I'm expecting Tony P to have a great game, expecting Dowdle to have a great game. And please, let's see more Ferguson, especially if we're getting clamped on defense. Let's see more Ferguson. Let's see more Cooks. Just get our playmakers the ball in space. And so, simply put, I need that.
Are you good? Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. All these technical difficulties we've been having, I just can't tell anymore. So, yeah, no, that's and that's a really great way to start this out. The one thing that that, as you said it just has me thinking back to the last few weeks. I feel like we've been saying a lot, like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a big Tony Pollard game, or this is gonna be a big running game, and it just hasn't happened. So like I'm just wondering if we're wishing upon a shooting star, and praying that we start to get a lot more of a balanced run game, and it's just not going to happen. I mean, granted, last weekend, obviously, with the game getting out of hand quickly, it kind of didn't really work in our favor to be able to, feed 20 and feed 23 and give them carries. But the one thing that I'm really hoping this week, obviously, just an all-around bounce back performance. And I guess just starting on the offensive side of the ball, just with the way that this offense performed last week and how good they've been this year, Buffalo Bills defense is solid. We said that in our preview podcast, which never got uploaded, but we did give the Bills their flowers in our preview and said that, hey, despite all the injuries, it's a very solid defense. And we talked a lot about their defensive line, and they proved that on Sunday. Their defensive line was absolutely wrecking the game. Our offensive line looked terrible. They were just getting manhandled. Dak didn't have time. But most importantly for this week's game is that, I mean, we obviously need a bounce back performance from everyone. There's no one that is exempt from that. I'm not willing to say that a single person played well last week. Obviously Dak did not have a great game. CD didn't do much. Tony Pollard actually looked pretty solid in the carries that he got. It just, again, game script was out of favor early. Didn't really have the chance to continue to feed him as we would have liked. Jake Ferguson had a bad drop last week. Offensive line just left to right was all pretty bad. So again, no one is exempt. Dak had a terrible game last week, probably his second worst game of the season outside of the San Francisco game. So, hopefully we can just see an overall bounce back performance. The thing that I kind of see this game turning into, which we'll talk about more when we get to the defense, because that's really what scares me a lot more about this game, is not our offense against their defense. It's our defense against their offense. But I can easily see this game turning into a pretty big shootout. And it's something that I know that we can be capable of, and at least keeping pace, if not pacing overall the game script. But it's something that we obviously want to avoid, especially with what is shaping up probably next week too. And I mean, just first initial thoughts right here, right now, without any digging or anything, um, is also probably going to be a shootout. So I can see Spanky calling for the ball here. So what do you got?
Yeah, it's not breaking news or anything, but a report just came out of the Star saying Cowboys running back Tony Pollard said Thursday at the start of the season he was working through his January leg fracture more than he realized. On where his leg is now, I would say it's night and day difference. You think you're good, you think you're all the way back until you're actually out there making plays full speed, feeling it. Once you get the feel and once your feet get under you, then you realize, oh, so I might have lost a little right there, but I'm picking it up back now. Believes he really moved past injury halfway through the season, a little bit after the bye week, something like that. I started to just feel like I was starting to get in the groove of things. And so, kind of what you said is we're kind of wishing upon a shooting star with Pollard, but I'm actually going to go against that point, Bennett, just because a stat is right now in front of me that I was going to share later. But Tony Pollard, weeks 1 through 9, 4 yards per carry, 2.62 after contact, and 8 total missed tackles. 8 carries of 10 plus yards and a 65 PFF rushing grade. So that's first 9 weeks, kind of alludes to the fact that he's not back from injury yet. But weeks 10 through 15, 4.3 yards a carry, which is up 0.3. Wow. But 3.21 yards after contact with 22 missed tackles and 10 carries of 10 plus yards with a staggering 20-point upgrade from his 65 PFF rushing grade in the first 9 weeks to a 85.2 rushing grade. And I understand it's kind of wishing upon a star, and he hasn't really had that breakout performance, nor do I think our heads really haven't aligned to the fact that this is not a rushing Jason Garrett Cowboys team anymore. We're a Dak Prescott Tex Coast passing attack Cowboys team now. And no, we won't probably get 170 yards and 2 touchdowns out of Tony Pollard. But the performances we're hoping for are, honestly, it's just, I really just want that long run. And that's kind of what we've missed from Tony Pollard, is that home run ability this year. I know, as anyone knows, as a Cowboy fan, that is what separated him from Zeke and really led to the release of Zeke. And we haven't seen that thus far this year. And so the stats back it up, but it seems like Tony Pollard is more so, I'm not sure how much of it was mental yet physical. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure anyone would be sure outside the star. We're pretty good at keeping stuff under the rug, but it's definitely looked like a new Tony Pollard ever since, I even want to say, like, kind of post Chargers game. It's kind of looked different Tony Pollard.
Yeah, yeah, no, hopefully, and that is, I'm glad that you brought those stats up because that really does help to build that case, obviously, and um, kind of like what Spanky said earlier, just in terms of ball control and not letting the Dolphins offense be on the field for a lot of the game. That is going to be a key to, I mean, to victory is just going to be if we can just get some actual sustained drives this week. I mean, it was what we really lacked last week in that, I mean, we just had way too many short drives, whether it be pick up one first down, then it's, 5 plays and a punt, or 6 plays, 40 yards and a punt. Like we need to get sustained drives. We need to just get points on the board. It feels like, and especially with what we'll talk about with our defense, but again, with the way that they've played in, some recent weeks, specifically last week, feels like the kind of game in which our offense is just going to have to score points, like, and not a couple points, but a lot of points. I could see this game getting as high as maybe even like the low, or probably like the mid to upper 60s, just in terms of total points. I mean, and we'll get to it when we do our score predictions later, but I like I said, I think this game is going to be a shootout, and this offense need to have a really, really big bounce back game from everyone. And for me, and this is just going to be spoiler of my killer of the week, but uh, one of the guys that really needs to bounce back this week, I'm gonna go ahead and put the onus on Mike McCarthy. Not even just a specific player, because this offense will go as Mike McCarthy goes, since he is the play caller. And what we saw last week, I mean, we talked about it in our last pod. Again, don't know how much of this was cut off, but it looked like the Dallas Cowboys of 2022. Just no one getting open. Offensive line was bad. Dak had to just try to force stuff into tight coverage. No pre-snap motion, no creativity. Like, against the Dolphins, this is the kind of team that you want to get creative and not just run, typical stuff that they see on film. This is the kind of game where you need to revert back to how you were calling plays before the Buffalo game, Mike. I mean, we saw McCarthy in his absolute bag against Philadelphia, and he looked incredible. And then last week, obviously, was just the complete opposite of that. So my killer of the week is going to be Mike McCarthy.
I love that. I love that. And I like how you kind of phrase it. It's, we players and an offense is entirely judged off really two main components, and that's the quarterback and the play caller. And so people tend to forget that. But I mean, wide receivers aren't getting open. All right, let's call different plays and make them get open. And so I love that. And my my kill of the week is going to be our offensive line. Just because we are dealing with probably no Zach Martin and probably no Tyron Smith. We saw, and I don't mean to put bad onus into the world, but we saw what our backup offensive line looked like in Arizona, and that wasn't a great performance. And so, really, I mean, I would love to just start building momentum and getting better and getting towards the playoffs. And I was pretty high on TJ Bass. One of our first kind of overall podcast episodes was guessing the 53-man roster, and I believe I was the only one with TJ Bass on the roster. And so him coming out of Oregon as a UDFA, although our rookie class really hasn't put up any numbers really, besides maybe a touchdown from Shoemaker, but he's kind of been a little unsung hero of this rookie class. And someone where I'm not saying he's going to be a cornerstone of our franchise, but he's definitely held his own for a UDFA. And, our last UDFA that has played well on the offensive line, obviously he hasn't done entirely well this year, was Terrence Steele out of Texas Tech. And
Right.
so we do have eyes for UDFA linemen, and TJ Bass is the next man up. But my killer of the week will be our offensive line.
Right. Love it. So two somewhat unconventional picks for Spanky and I today. Normally we, kind of like to go with Dak or CD or Pollard, or we've even sprinkled Dowdle in there. We've had killers of the week that have been specific offensive linemen, but yeah, this week we're going a little bit off the board and predicting McCarthy and just the offensive line as a whole. So I think that kind of puts a bow on things for the offensive side of the ball. So let's jump over to the other side of the ball, or should I say speed over to the other side of the ball. And this is where I feel like is going to be kind of the meat of this episode, just because let's just open with this, and this should be a surprise to nobody if you followed the NFL at all this year, but the Miami Dolphins offense is terrifying. They have speed everywhere. They have a young genius calling the plays in Mike McDaniel. They are just a really, really solid and well-oiled machine when they're humming on all cylinders. And they have a guy who's really taken a big step forward this year in Tua Tagovailoa. He's stayed healthy. He's played some really good ball this year. They have probably the best receiver in football in Tyreek Hill, and they have one of the best 1-2 punches overall with Jalen Waddle, first round pick from 2 years ago on the other side of Tyreek Hill, and they're both really fast. And you look at their running backs, and this is what really terrifies me about this week. You have the current NFL leader in touchdowns in Raheem Mostert, who is a veteran. I think he's like 31 or 2 years old, and he's redefining what it means to for running backs, because I think he's on like a $1.5 million contract this year, and he leads the NFL in touchdowns. So um, I think just incoincidentally, like in this offseason, he's helped to absolutely destroy the market for running backs. So maybe just a little bit of foreshadowing there with some guys like Josh Jacobs and Saquon and Tony Pollard potentially hitting the market this offseason. But yeah, and outside of Hill, Waddle, and Mostert, they also have a young speedy running back. Spanky and I both have him in fantasy. We've been very appreciative of him this year. Hopefully not this week, even though I think I might be starting him this week. I don't know. I had to check my lineup, but Devon Achane out of Texas A&M, he ran like a high 4.2s, low 4.3s at the combine. The guy can absolutely fly, and I guess I don't remember who they have at tight end, who their starting tight end is. If you know.
It's like Joe Sly or something like that. I'm pretty sure. Something like that.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll just say that they have a player to be named later at tight end. Well, we look that up. And then they also have some other guys. One of the matchups, underrated matchup this week, and this just shows that we can relate to pop culture, is that we have the boyfriend of Alex Earl versus the boyfriend of Haley Cavender this week. Facing off one-on-one with Braxton Berrios on the Dolphins. So we do know pop culture. So just want to put that out there. That's all I'm probably going to say about that. But Braxton Berrios, they have former Cowboy legend and Cooper Rush security blanket, and Cedric Wilson is still over there too. And as of right now, former Cowboy Connor Williams, who ever since going to the Dolphins and has shifted over to center, has actually been like really solid, which sucks for us. But he actually tore his ACL, if not last week. He was the week before, so we won't get our rematch with Connor Williams, Mr. Drive Killing Penalty himself. But with the status of the Dolphins' offensive line up in the air, I mean, there's a lot of question marks. Obviously, you have 5 question marks in front of Tua Tagovailoa this week, and for a guy who's done really well to avoid injury this year, I don't know who their backup offensive linemen are, but if our defensive line can bounce back and play like they have been outside of last week, uh, this game could shift into our hands pretty quickly, is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I'm not gonna. I guess I'll just spoil it right away. But my hot boy of the week will be our D line. I don't really want to say this week has to be a bend don't break mentality, but the defensive line will dictate if we're a bend don't break defense. We just really need to keep these guys in front of us, and obviously, I mean, it's probable that if Tyreek Hill plays, there will probably be a long, annoying Tyreek Hill touchdown. But honestly, Mostert has been very good this season stats wise, but it's just something about the way he runs outside the opponent's 10-yard line where recently he really hasn't been that breakaway home run threat. Obviously, famous last damn words with our defense, but yeah, this offense is we're going to see probably the most pre-snap motion, and something I read this morning was this is a Kyle Shanahan-esque offense in which we are going to be. This offense is very similar to how the 49ers run their offense. Obviously, 49ers are a lot more physical, but with the pre-snap motion, with the deking and dotting, and with kind of just the overall trickery. I mean, we're going to see Tyreek Hill lined up in a crouched position behind the tight end like 4 or 5 times. It's going to be very, very annoying. But this is a great little. I know maybe probably a lot of our listeners listen to part of my take. This is kind of like who's the bigger fraud game in terms of just Cowboys and Dolphins. But yeah, the defensive line is going to have to dictate and really be the factor of why our defense shuts them down. We need to get pressure on Tua, rough them up a little bit, and more importantly, we just can't let him have enough time to throw a deep ball over Stephon Gilmore guarding Tyreek Hill, because it's kind of what's been keeping me up at night is just like visualizing Tyreek Hill on like Jordan Lewis, and that's just a pretty horrible thing to imagine. And we're gonna have to watch it Sunday on Christmas Eve. So, but I already said my hot boy. I need a rebound game, and I don't mean to steal Burke's thunder here, but another rebound game is needed with Dan Quinn. Slowly but surely, Cowboys Nation has almost been losing faith in Dan Quinn as a play caller on the defensive side of the ball, and more specifically, Dan Quinn's lack of ability to adjust. And we kind of saw that last week with James Cook. It's like, how don't you have a game plan to adjust to that? How, like, he's going to run the ball to the right here. How can't we stop this? So Dan Quinn is going to have to be a frequent flyer and adjustments and the chess match that he's going to be playing against McDaniels. And it's going to kind of be the old guard versus the new generation of coaches in that sense. In the sense of this whole entire game is it's Mike McCarthy and Dan Quinn who've been in the league since God knows, and Mike McDaniels who's been around the league for God knows, but is a recent coach and is kind of that young, innovative mind. He's kind of stole McVay's thunder and being kind of the best offensive play caller in football right now, at least the more fun one. And it's just going to be a great chess match. And the reason why the Cowboys will win this game is dictated by the defensive front. And whether that is Micah Parsons or maybe Micah Parsons lines up at off-ball linebacker and I eat my words entirely, but we really need to see the defensive line put pressure on Tua with just how many playmakers they have, but also additionally, we need to be disciplined. Whether that is our running lanes, our pass rushing lanes,
we can't let Achan reverse field because we got overly aggressive. We can't let Tyreek Hill reverse field because we got overly aggressive. This is the fastest team in the NFL that we're playing against. And although we preach that we're very fast on defense, I mean, I don't think there's a defense as fast as the Miami Dolphins offense, simply put. So it's going to be a great chess match. I just want to throw this out there with everything that's been circulating around Micah Parsons. Just lock in Micah Parsons 2 sacks. I really think he is pissed off from what he's reading on Twitter. We know Micah is a frequent flyer in social media department, and I just, with how banged up the offensive line is for the Miami Dolphins, and more specifically, like, we've seen Micah Parsons line up over the center. We know the Miami Dolphins are on their backup center right now. I just foresee Micah Parsons doing that dribble move, little shimmy, and getting into his face probably within 2.5 seconds. And so I just really foresee Micah Parsons, maybe 3, but I'm going to play it safe with 2 sacks.
Okay. Yeah, I love that a lot. And gosh, for my hot boy of the week, I mean, this is where it gets tough because this game can go so many different ways. Like, I don't think that we'll blow them out. I think the only two ways that this goes is either we win in a shootout, or we win or lose or lose. Sorry, wow. Formulate your thoughts. Win in the shootout, lose in the shootout, or we get blown out. I think those are the only three outcomes of this game. I don't see a way in which we scrape out a 17-14 like Big Ten football kind of game. Like, that's just not going to happen with all the speed that's on the field for both teams and on both sides of the ball. But how I think this game will be won, like Spanky said, especially with our defense. It starts with the trenches, especially even if you have those guys on their O-line play and, they're on the injury report today just as a precaution and all of them play. I mean, the likelihood that all 5 of them are out is pretty unlikely, but in the off chance that all 5 of their O linemen don't play, then I'll eat my words and say that I was wrong, because that would be absolutely insane to happen. But like Spanky said, this game is going to be won or lost in the trenches, and it's going to be won or lost with guys like Micah, guys like D-Law. And the one thing that I'm really nervous about is just we know that they can beat you with their speed with Hill and with Waddle, receiving the ball. But I'm very, very nervous about our run defense this week. I hope that it has been hammered at practice the entire week that the run defense has to be better, because in every game that we've lost, pretty much except for the first Eagles loss, I mean, the Buffalo loss, obviously the Arizona loss, and the San Francisco loss, the 3 themes were that we just couldn't stop the run. And with a team like Miami that is as much of a well-oiled machine as they are and as good as they are at running the football, it's a bad matchup on paper. But as I said on Monday when we finished that pod up, and again, don't know if this got cut off or not, so I'll just repeat myself, but this is kind of a look yourself in the mirror kind of game if you're Dan Quinn and you're the Dallas Cowboys defense, in that the entire NFL is aware of what your issues are and how to exploit your weaknesses, which for the Dallas Cowboys, it's running the football, whether it's it's pretty much just running outside the hashes, and those outside zone plays and tosses and things like that. Everyone in the NFL is aware that that is your weakness, and I expect the Dolphins to see if they can beat us with it, because they have 2 guys in Mostert and A-Chain that once they catch the edge, they're pretty much gone if you don't get a hold of them early. So for my hot boy this week, and I'm gonna go kind of off the radar a little bit. Actually, I don't even know if it's that off the radar, but I'm gonna say that my hot boy this week, just because they both had pretty poor games last week. It's gonna be our 2 guys that are actually listed as linebackers that actually start. It's going to be a combo hot boy here of the linebacking unit of Damone Clark and Marquise Bell. They both had, like I said, probably their worst games of the season for both of them last week. I mean, there was just the ultimate insult to injury play for Damone Clark last week where he got, bull rushed by Deion Dawkins back like 20 yards and then got hurt at the end of the play after he got pancaked.
That was a tough one.
Yeah, that was a really tough look. Marquise Bell had a pretty brutal game. He had some big missed tackles that we haven't seen them miss. So I hope that the two of them can really step up this week and have a big game. Because if they don't have a big game, we could be back here, next week and be tweeting a lot of angry things from our podcast account while we're watching this game. So those are gonna be my hot boys this week. It's gonna be the linebacking room of Damone Clark and Marquise Bell.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay. So did you have anything else that you wanted to add before we jump into score predictions?
No, honestly, it's gonna be. I'm pretty reserved, and I need to see the Cowboys turn into a corner. Sorry, but I guess I'll just start us with the score prediction, and I'm gonna go 37-34 Cowboys with a Brandon Aubrey as time expires field goal.
I love that. And I think that's probably similar to how mine is going to be as well. But just to update the listeners real quick, so it was only Spanky and I for the preview pod last week, but needless to say, and as you could probably predict if you've listened to us all season, we predicted a Cowboys win last week, and needless to say, we both lost last week, with the Cowboys obviously losing. And for our preseason record predictions, Stu and I actually got last week's game correct. So, and Spanky had us losing, or had us winning last week. He was the only one out of us three that had us winning. So, Stu and I remain tied with our preseason record predictions, in that we only have 2 games in which we've predicted incorrectly, which was Arizona, and then for me it was San Francisco, and for him it was Seattle. And Spanky has 4 games that he's predicted incorrectly from the preseason. And just taking a look at what we had this week, Spanky has a chance to make up some ground on Stu and I here. He predicted us to lose this week, and Stu and I had us winning this game. And for our score predictions, luckily for Spanky, he leads this category. He's got a pretty commanding lead with 3 weeks remaining. He's up 4-2, and again, this is for spreads and just score predictions overall. And whenever we lose games, we don't count losses. And then we had the 1 week where we all forgot to make picks. So Spanky's up 4, and then. Spanky's up to 4, and then Stu and I are at 2 for that. So Spanky's up 2 with 3 to play. So should be getting a win there, it looks like. But that leads me back to my score prediction, and this is one that I'm really torn on. When I woke up and thought about doing the podcast this morning, I honestly thought that I was gonna make Dallas Ballers Club history and be the first person to actually predict us to lose a game. And to be honest with you, it's really, really hard not to. But I just can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't pick against this team to lose this week. I just can't. Cowboys are known, especially under Mike McCarthy, for knowing how to bounce back after losses. And despite this game being on the road and just at least the on paper style matchup not really working in our favor, I'm going to say that the Cowboys win this game this week. I'm going to say the final score is 38-34, and I think it'll be 38-35. So I'm going to say one point more than Spanky for for both teams. And I think it might be the same thing. I think it'll be a Brandon Aubrey game-winning field goal. So I'll just
I
say
love
that. Yeah. Okay. So shifting into our last segment here. So we have our cover zero takes. I'm sure that, well, I guess you already kind of spoiled one of them earlier. But I'm sure that you've got some cover zero takes. So I'll let you start us off here.
Yeah, I only really have one, and or besides the Micah one, so I guess two. But I think we sacked Tua 5 times or more, especially with how dinged up their offensive unit is, how much of a vocal leader Demarcus Lawrence is, and just our overall talent. I think we sack him 5 times.
Okay. Okay. I like that. I don't know if I can commit to 5 sacks. I wouldn't mind seeing like 2 or 3, but um, mm, I don't know. I don't know what to pick here. I'm gonna say, jeez. I'm gonna say this is gonna sound so stupid. Jake Ferguson is gonna win the girlfriend off this week. And he is going to go, and I know I predicted him to have a big week last week and didn't really come to fruition, but can't predict that the Cowboys are just going to curl up and shit the bed like they did. So I'm going to go with Jake Ferguson this week. He's going to have 6 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown this week. And I'm also going to say that. I want to say something about our defense, but I don't have the confidence to make that pick right now. So I'm going to say Dak Prescott this week is going to bounce back, and he's going to go for 275 and 3 touchdowns and reasserts himself in the MVP race this week.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Okay. So with all that being said, do we have anything else that we want to get out there before we finish up?
I'm all set, man.
Okay.
I need the Cowboys to win me back a little.
Yeah, this is a scary game, man, and yeah, if we lose this game, I'll say it right now, I won't be surprised if we lose this game. I don't expect us to, but again, like I said, when I woke up this morning and started thinking about the pod, I thought I was gonna predict us to lose, but heat of the moment, I just couldn't do it. But I won't be surprised if the Cowboys lose this game, but I'm really hoping not. And also, let's go Giants this week. Let's go Tommy Cutlets. We need you, buddy. We need you. We need the Giants. It was an absolute blessing from the football gods that we still have a chance to win the division after the way that we got embarrassed last week. Man, the Eagles are in shambles. That's a topic for another time. But yeah, so Tommy Cutlets, please go get it done. That would certainly help us out a lot. And yeah, I think we'll leave it at that. So as always, please, we are available to listen and to be watched on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Please follow us on our socials, our X and TikTok at DallasBC Pod, our Instagram at DallasBC Podcast. And please email us for any inquiries or sponsorships or things of that nature to podcastdbc@gmail.com. And once again, as always, thank you guys so much for joining us today. And happy holidays and a Merry Christmas to all of you. And we'll be back next week. Don't know how our schedule is going to go, just in terms of our upload schedule for the Lions game and for the Jimmy Johnson Ring of Honor ceremony, but we will work it out. We'll be back next week. We're gonna take some time off for the holidays, and yeah, we will be back here next week. Thanks, guys.
Boom.